also all sort of problem in our neighborhood right now. We have problems with Pakistan, in China, and there's a lot of our neighborhood have a sentiment of India out.
Yeah.
What is your take on that, sir? I would love to hear that.
This is a question over which I have thought somewhat, and which I think a lot of Indians are also wondering, why does India have such bad relations with its neighbors? I think living with neighbors is always never easy. It's the same when you're living in a colony. You have to get along with your neighbors, and you don't always do that. There could be so many issues. But when it comes to India's neighbors, I think the fundamental problem is that all of India's current neighbors, which are sovereign states now, have become independent countries only in the last few decades. Earlier, they were part of what is the civilizational India. Even if you take British India, it extended from, as I said, the Hindu Kush to the Irrawaddy.
Yeah.
And Ceylon was also a part of it. Myanmar was there till the 1930s as part of it. So many Indians went to Myanmar, and then, when the government came, a lot of them got kicked out after 1962. So there is a fundamental conflict, I think, in the thinking of our neighbors, that who are they? Is their identity more a civilizational identity of the civilization that exists in this part of the world? Because if you look at any of our neighbors, there is always some commonality with the neighboring region of India. You take Nepal, Madheshis, or you take Paharis and the people of Darjeeling and Sikkim and so forth. You take Pakistan. What is the difference between a Pakistani Punjabi and a Hindu Punjabi in terms of language, food, culture,
the historical significance as well.
Way of thinking, gali galoj, everything is the same.
Food.
So, you meet a Pakistani abroad, if you're from North India, he's so thrilled to be able to talk
connect
to
immediately. You connect.
Now, this is a problem for them, that at one level there is that tug towards India. But at the same time, now that they are separate states, how do they define their new identity? And that has to be, you have to distance yourself from India. When you distance yourself, then you become anti-Indian.
Yeah.
Then you say all the problems which happen are because of India.
Yeah.
So you become a bogey, you become the scapegoat for anything that happens in India. Now take Bangladesh. They were part of Pakistan. And you know that the Muslim League started there, and it was the Calcutta riots, which was a big trigger for the partition. So at that time, they were behaving like Muslims, Islamists. The Islamic element in their character was strong. Then in 71, when they broke away, it was culture, their Bengali culture, language, which came to the fore. So they oscillate between, are they Islamic or Bengali? They're a dual personality.
Yes.
So whichever comes to the fore, then you have this thing. You take the problems in Sri Lanka. Sinhala versus Tamil. That has been the conflict there. And they're trying to create their own identity as a Buddhist Sinhala nation. But you can't deny that there are these Tamils. And when something is happening to Tamils there, people in Tamil Nadu feel upset. Or Nepal. You had this Madheshi problem a few years ago. It's a continuing thing that if they are ill-treated, then people in India feel upset about it. You take now what is happening in Mizoram. There's common ethnicity between the people on the Chin states and Mizoram and Manipur. So you have people who are relatives who come across. So there is no clean-cut dividing line between India and its neighbor. There's no clean-cut geographical boundaries. There's no natural boundaries between India and its neighbor.
That's a plus point for us.
I don't know if it's a plus point or not. It's a fact that normally, there has to be some natural features, like you have maybe some mountain ranges or major river or something, or a desert, which will define one country or region from another.
Absolutely.
India, Pakistan, what is the dividing line? The Radcliffe line, which is drawn on a map, or between India and Bangladesh, or India and Nepal. there is no clear-cut line. There are people who've got interests in both countries. Sometimes the line cuts through a field, through a house. So all this creates a problem, the conflict between the inherited identity and the modern identity. And how do you resolve that? I think that when we are dealing with our neighbors, we have to accept that this is so. So I think what we are doing is the right approach, at least now we are, maybe in the past we did not, is that one, we have to respect their sovereignty and treat them as sovereign nations, no problem. Two, we have to be magnanimous, generous, non-reciprocal. Treat them in an economic sense like some of your Indian states. Aisa dena hai, de do, koi baat nahi. It doesn't matter. Three, we feel that this will create long-term interdependencies. Because when they are benefiting from a good relationship with India, as say Bangladesh was, because you had so many agreements with them, you give them duty-free access, there's oil pipelines, power transmission lines, connectivity and so forth. Electricity is available. It's not easy to break away because irrespective of who is in power there. Take the Maldives, for example. Last year there was a lot of hand-wringing. Oh, he has come to power with an India out agenda and so on and so forth. But 7-8 months later, it's okay because the realities kick in.
Yes.
So we have to be sometimes a little patient. And we have to make those countries realize that it is in your interest also to have a good relationship. I mean, they have to also start thinking, can we grow without India? Or would we be better off working with India? Because if India is growing as a major power in the world, then surely it makes sense, just common sense, that you try and get lifted along with India, the neighbors. After all, countries from across the world are trying to plug into India. Why not our neighbors who know much better how to deal with India? They have connections here. Or do they think that, by getting in foreign powers, getting Chinese money, that they're going to prosper? This is a question they have to answer themselves. But in the long run, one hopes that their self-interest will come into play and they would realize it. It's a slow process. Sometimes there are setbacks, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and so forth. But I think that on the whole, we have to be a little patient.
Patience.
Our neighbors also realize that when they are in difficulty, who will they turn to except India? During the COVID pandemic, you saw we are the ones who gave the vaccines.
Absolutely.
When there's a problem in the Maldives with water supply, we give it. Food, medicines, all go from India. If there is a tsunami, India is the first responder. If there is piracy, we will come in and help, as we did in the Maldives in 1988.
Yes.
So all these factors make for it, but it's a two-way process. We should be patient. It's not that we haven't made mistakes. I think mistakes have been made both at the government level and at the public level. At the government level, I think at times we have tended to be overbearing and they resent it.
Yeah.
At times we tend to neglect them and they don't like it. If we are to neglect them, as we are now telling to Pakistan, okay, you do your thing, we are no interest in it. It's a matter of deliberate policy, but it should not be some policy that is inadvertent. We should be giving them much more attention, making them feel that they're part of a larger community. We should be talking to them more. I personally think that there should be more interaction. Our leaders should be able to say, okay, I'm just taking a flight, go and have lunch, talk to my counterpart there, come back, or visit a pilgrimage site.
Right. Does the problem lie in the fact that India tries to be like an elder brother in most situations?
Well, you can't help it if you're an elder brother, I mean, what do? But you have to behave responsibly.
Diary of a Publisher. Here we don't just talk, we explore, question, and push beyond the ordinary. And if you're ready to see things from a fresh perspective, you're at the right place. Make sure to subscribe. We're just scratching the surface, and the next conversation might just change how you see the world.